wants to know. So we'll just start with Matt Ray last week in Austin, now back in Australia, and now give us the Matt Ray upcoming schedule for the next 2 weeks.
Well, I signed a new lease Wednesday. So Australia is the land of fire and floods, apparently. And so last January or November, I moved into a new house. And January, our the people who own our current house rental, they got flooded out and asked us to move. And we said, no, thanks. We just got here. And they said, well, we won't renew your lease, but you can leave whenever you want. So we found a new place.
So, but like, how
And
does it work?
yeah,
Did you not have like an end date? Is it just like you're out
we had a
immediately?
12-month lease. Yeah, we had a 12-month lease, and they just
Oh,
said
and you
we
were
won't.
ending anyway? Was it over
Well,
anyway?
no, we had a 12-month lease, and they said we won't renew it at the end of your 12 months. Just FYI, don't
Okay.
expect to live there past that.
Okay.
And then they said, but we will let you out with no penalties.
Oh, okay. So they're sort of like kind of sweeten the deal. It's like if you find a better place, you can get out. If not, okay. Got it.
At first they were like, we'll give you a month's free rent if you're gone in a month. And I'm like,
Like that's not free. That's not
yeah,
free rent.
even this, we're moving 6 months in, which kind of sucks.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. And then somehow and then you're going to Hawaii in between like or not or I guess
I've,
post move.
yeah, I've got some first world problems. So yeah, the place we are now, our new place, it had been listed for like a month, which is a long time for here. And
Right.
we went and saw it, and there were like 10 people checking it out, and it's like stunning, amazing views. And
Right.
then, but it was right outside our price range. And so I said,
Uh-huh.
hey, it's nice to see, but it's not going to be for us. And then they changed their listing to say no pets.
Oh, okay. So
And we were
then
like, well, okay, that just cements it. We weren't going to do it. And then, we were like, why is this place still listed? So we said, you know what,
okay.
we'll lowball them and tell them we can move in a week. Because
Okay.
every week that it's empty is
Yeah, lost money, right? Yeah.
lost money. And
Yeah.
so they were like, they called our bluff. So we lowballed them and offered them immediate move in, and they took it.
Nice.
So
Now what
the
is
pro-
it
the
but
problem
is
with them, yeah, the
this
problem
feels
with
like one of
immediate
those
move
things
in,
though, like,
yeah.
is it haunted? Is there like something like the
Oh,
way you
oh, you
describe the market is like there's like, infinite demand for places. So like, are you worried? Is it like what's the deal? Why? Why is it not
why is it cheap?
why has it been sitting for so
It
long?
it's not cheap. So the owners, the place has been rented for like 15, 20 years. Like, so it's not like just on the market.
Right?
But they just redid all the floors, they repainted the walls and put in new drapes. Um, it's an old house, but everything's old here. I'll share I'll share a photo of the view. It's insanely amazing.
Okay.
And
And it
off
has
the
an
master,
office. It has an office with good
and it has an
acoustics.
office.
That's what everyone cares about here. Like, will
It's
Matt
got
Ray's audio be even better?
it's got carpet and
Oh, I like it.
cinder block walls, I
Oh,
guess, probably.
does it have
So
an
it's
Ethernet drop? That's what producer
no.
Brandon wants.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
I'm
no, no.
sad. I'm sad about
Yeah,
that. All right.
so I
Well,
haven't figured
is
out
it
the wiring of the house
unreasonable
yet.
to run a cable just like in the middle of the living room
It's
through
on the
the
second
kitchen?
floor.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I, so internet is not installed yet. It'll be the same, the highest available that Australia offers, which is 1,050.
Okay.
Well, so it's not bad. And unrelated, 5G just started popping up everywhere for my
Oh,
phone
little
like 2 weeks
fixed
ago.
fixed internet potential fixed home
Maybe.
internet 5G.
Yeah, I've stopped complaining because 1,000 is pretty good, and
I like
a
how you
thousand
don't say
megabit.
1 gig. You're like 1,000. Make it sound even better. Oh, that's even better. That's funny.
But the problem with this, like, short term immediate move-in thing is I was in Austin.
Mhm,
Uh, I got back on Tuesday. We signed the lease on Wednesday. The
mhm.
movers were scheduled to come on Saturday,
Okay.
and then we were going on vacation on Thursday.
All right. Got it. Yep.
Not
Okay.
like Thursday the next week.
Okay.
So essentially, I was going to be in town for 9 days.
Okay.
8 days.
Hmm.
And then, of course, when I land, my wife texts me that my son's tested positive for COVID.
Oh, okay.
So that just, so then I call like the movers and they're like, we're not coming. Uh, so we had to reschedule the movers and the cleaners, they canceled. Or well, we had to move the cleaners because they were coming after the movers, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
so,
Right. Yeah.
so and I'm trying to schedule, cleaners on, you know, 4 days notice, 5 days notice. So that stinks. And had to move the move out inspection. So everything is, but so far, knock on. There's no
Knock on
wood.
wood.
There's some
Really
wood.
good for
Yeah,
you.
there's some wood. Um, so far, so good. We all went and got PCR tests. So my son's isolated in his room. We wore I didn't take a mask off from Austin to to like day 3 of being in Sydney. Except
Right.
for like eating. I,
You're
I
like
even
in
tried to. I even tried to
you're like in
sleep
the
in it.
full gear, the bodysuit, out of the
Yeah.
movies, right?
So we're out of the masks because we all got our negative PCRs except for my
Okay.
son who's isolating in his room. Because my wife had been like, she didn't think he had COVID, so she was taking care of him.
Yeah.
But no symptoms, and I sat next to this like, wheezing dude, and then like, 2 rows over, there was somebody hacking cough the whole flight from
Yeah, but you
LA.
never know.
So
I mean, I think that's one thing you learned here. It's like, I mean, obviously coughing and stuff's not good, but like you just don't know. Like, I don't
you
know.
don't know.
I mean, you can't be like, is that an allergy or is that because I mean also the kids, they're almost universally, well, I don't want to say universally, but they're often asymptomatic, but they're also the carriers, right? And they're just like running
Yeah.
around, they're totally fine. So it's like, I don't know. I just think like trying to play doctor or diagnose people on site is like, yeah, it's good luck with that. So
Well, I just think wear a mask on a plane, please. That's
well,
all
Matt
I ask.
Ray, the struggle is real for you. Everyone in the chat is really, they really feel bad for your about Hawaii trip and your beautiful new home in Australia. So when we workshop this for the next time you tell it for the public, you have to be like, it's tough, it's a difficult struggle that you live. So you're not getting much sympathy from the group here. Hey, I do want to welcome Todd. Todd, first time viewer. Welcome, Todd. We appreciate you. And if you haven't, you should subscribe because I don't know. That's what Twitter keeps telling, or not Twitter. That's what Twitch keeps telling me. We need more subscribers. So welcome.
Feed the mighty Twitch.
The mighty Twitch. All right. Did you have you looked at any of these topics? Are you ready to go?
I'm
Probably
trying to
not.
find the
That's
thread.
okay. I'm
No,
ready.
no. I was trying to read stuff. I was trying to read stuff.
I got some stuff for you this week, so don't worry.
Okay.
I got
Well,
some stuff for you
let's
to
see.
react to.
Looking at the show notes.
I put a lot of
Start with
notes in there this week because I want to get your take on a lot of
wow.
these survey questions.
It
This is
looks like the only thing we're talking about is Starbucks.
no,
This
they're
is
gonna talk
tech
about
news
that
I
too.
can use.
Hold on,
Oh,
hold on. We got a lot, man. Look, we got charts, we got graphs.
oh
This is one of
man.
our best show notes ever.
Oh wow. I'm impressed, Brandon.
Well, without Cote, we can always just count along for like a monologue, right? But so with it's just you and me, we're direct speakers, right? It's like I don't know. You're probably not going to go off on some type of long, I don't know what a Bachelor of Arts Renaissance literature thing. So we got to fill the time with something.
I took a mythology class.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, don't let me stop you. If you want to go on about the Greek gods,
I feel a
by all
liberal arts
means.
rant coming on. Yeah.
if you've got issues with Zeus or whoever, like get it out, get it all out. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, I know
a lot of notes.
Your kids are gonna be waking up. So should we get going? Should we?
Well, that's the beauty of it. It's summer break, spring break. What is this break? My
Well, it's
kids are
summer
out of
break
school.
here, and I don't think it's summer there. If it's summer in Australia, we got some major issues.
No. It's cold and rainy, and but the kids are all out of school.
Oh wait a minute! I didn't put it in the Twitter. That's our last thing. I put it in the Twitch, but I didn't put it in the. I'm sorry. I put it in the what do you call it? In the Slack, but I didn't put it in Twitter. Let me do that one real fast. Twitter, and then we'll really start.
I gotta think of.
Have I told everyone how much I love a clipboard manager? It's like I know it's like everyone's been using one for years, but I finally got all my clipboard management.
And I can't get into it. I don't know.
Well, it's just like this one. It's like, oh, I already have the little,
Do you keep it up
string.
and keep like the window open in another?
No, I just have a hotkey.
Yeah.
It's what is it? Command Shift V, and it brings up the thing. And it's got all my like pre-built tweets and everything. So I don't know. It's great.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like a text.
Wait,
I guess it's another
that's
version of like Text Exploder, right? Or text
yeah, I was about to say that's
substitution.
not that's I was thinking about the ones that keep like your history of
Well, this
copy
one
and
does
paste.
that. It has all the history, but
Oh,
you
it
can
does
also just
both.
pop it
So,
up and then just use like I've
oh,
got like an STT clipboard. So it's like, oh, here's my shortcuts for
what's it
like
called?
what is this one called? Pastebot, I think it is. So but there are many. I mean, this is not from what I gather, this is a common feature amongst many clipboard managers. But I don't know, like I never, it's like people told me to use it like for years and I just didn't. So
Because I've tried using the ones that they keep like your last 10 copy paste,
mhm.
and it's just like the amount of memory. There's that usage barrier. Like I have to remember that I have it running, and then I have to like think to use it, as opposed to like, oh, it was that browser. Refresh, grab the link again, and do it again.
Well, what I
Or
find is like so for me, it's like, okay, most of the time I'll just be using the normal command V, right? Pasting. But then they'll be like, oh, wait a minute. Like I will have forgot that I copied something else. And then I'll
mm,
be like, oh yeah. Then I'll just go command shift V and I can see everything. And then I'd be like, oh, so it's like that's sort of like a constant reminder. Then if you get good, you can be like command shift V2. And that knows that so that's two copies ago, right? So when you're starting to like move a bunch of stuff around, like, it's kind of like, I mean, it's like Emacs is the same thing, right? Like, put it in the buffer, remember where it is. Like all the
yeah.
editors have that kind of
Well,
like that
and
thing.
at your CLI, like you can hit up arrow, but you can also hit Control R and start searching through your previous command history.
Yeah. So it's the
And
same
that's
idea. Like once you kind of like, I think that's a good analogy. Like once you're sort of at that level, that's kind of the mentality you go through with like, I think the clipboard manager. You're
yeah,
like, oh yeah, I know like everything's there and I can get to it. And then you get to the next level. You're like, oh, I know I'm using these. You can do text substitutions too, like the Mac has that. But like it's also nice to just be like, oh, like I've got a whole work clipboard, I've got a whole SCP
yeah,
clipboard, and
yeah.
I just be like, oh, this is where because that way I just know like I'm constantly resending this stuff. Like, what's this link? So I don't know. There you go. Clipboard managers, everyone, you should use it. I like this. What did Ryan say? I bet Excel is a great clipboard manager. Yeah, that's true. Although I've been trying to figure out. Have you played with Python? Uh, using Python to edit Excel, or vice
No,
versa. I'm like,
no.
this is my new thing. I'm like, oh, I like this. I'm getting into this. So anyway, all right. Are we ready? Ready?
I guess so. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Bring the excitement. Bring the excitement to the stream.
no. I'm finding my recommendations for the episode. I gotta. This is gonna be my recommendation. So here we go. I'll put this. I'm not spoiling it yet. I'm just putting it in the links. Sorry. I just want to be at my desk and people sleeping.
All right. Ready?
Sure.
All right, Matt, you have made your triumphant return to Australia, but I have a quick question for you. While you were in Austin visiting the United States, did you go to Starbucks? Is that where you got your coffee in the mornings?
I went to Starbucks twice. So once was meeting someone for a work meeting. They're like, oh, let's go to
Yeah, let's
Starbucks
do
because
a little
you
coffee
know
chat.
I spent a week at the JW Marriott, and conference coffee is actually worse than Starbucks. So they've got that not going for them, even though it is Starbucks. And if you've ever managed a conference, heads up, they pay you. You have to pay list prices on coffee, which means like, you see those big urns of like, 5 gallons of coffee. It's literally like they took five, Vente's and dumped or triple Vente coffees and dumped them in there. Those are like $50 a pop.
Wow.
That's what they charge you as the conference organizer. So that kind of sucks because that coffee's usually pretty terrible. And I've been
Okay,
trying to
but
like
let
switch to like a half calf, and so the decaf is also
all right.
more terrible.
So let me stop you there because this is what I discovered this week that it has come to my attention, and I am for those that are really curious. Like I don't drink any coffee. I don't care about coffee. I don't know anything about coffee. But this popped up in the Slack. It turns out that Australia does not have very many Starbucks, and
Yeah.
I guess the story is that in 2008, Starbucks closed over 70% of their locations, leaving only
Hmm.
23 Starbucks in the entire continent. The entire
Yep.
continent of Australia has only 23 Starbucks,
It's
which I
probably
feel
up to
like Starbucks
25.
is only only McDonald's seems both more American and ubiquitous around the world than Starbucks.
Subway.
Subway?
Subway's like I think they might have the most franchises of anything. But anyway, back to Starbucks.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
what I
yeah.
learned here though is that basically I know I hate to like judge a whole continent, but I'm about to do it. It's like Australians are kind of snobs when it comes to coffee. That seems to be the message that I'm getting is that they
No,
have
no,
a
no, no,
long
no, no. No,
go
no,
ahead.
it's not snobbery. We want everyone to have good coffee. What's wrong with that?
So I guess I never thought of it because I think most Americans, I guess this is what I learned is that like I guess Americans like the fancy drinks at Starbucks, which are really like sort of some form of like sugar
Milkshakes.
and milkshakes, right? And so it sounds like Australia not down with this. They do not
Well,
in their cafes. They do not want this milkshake Starbucks stuff. Is
no,
that
no,
the
no,
issue?
no, no. So the reason Starbucks succeeded in America is like coffee was generally terrible across the U.S. Um, and Starbucks showed up and they're like, "Look, we're going to give you a decent cup of coffee, and and those of you who aren't here for the decent coffee, we've got milkshakes." And uh, they ran with that, and it turns out some of us who don't care for the milkshake side of the ledger still are like, "This is better coffee than I get 90% of the other places." Right. And so the U.S. needed to up their coffee game, and Starbucks took advantage. Meanwhile, in Australia, and the 70s and 80s, a lot of Eastern European, South European,
Italian and Greek immigrants, according to
yeah, yeah,
this,
yeah,
to my research, after World War
yes,
II, they brought the real coffee.
they brought the real coffee, right? So Australia's got 40 plus years of solid coffee making experience under their belts, and I don't think twice about ordering a latte or a flat white at a gas station, right? And meanwhile in the US you'd be like, I might die. And so like everywhere you go has good coffee, and it's not expensive. That's what I noticed. Like, I mean, it'll be like $4 Australian, which would be like 3 American for a
What's a
good.
star? I don't even know. What's a Starbucks these days? What's the
They were
equivalent?
charging like 4.50, $5 American for a
It's too
latte,
much.
and
Yeah,
so
it's too
that's
much.
that's a 50% premium over what I'm used to paying in Australia for better coffee. So Starbucks here in Australia has not succeeded because their coffee's not better, and the places you generally still find them are tourist areas. The other advantage they have is they've got different foods. Most coffee shops in Australia are like you can get maybe a sausage roll, um, maybe maybe some pies or something. But Starbucks is still like, hey, we've got scones, and we've got bagels, which they don't have anywhere, hardly at all in Australia. So my kids are like, I want a bagel from Starbucks, and I'm like, fine. And they're like, "Are you going to get a coffee?" I'm like, "No, I will walk next door to the coffee place and get a better coffee." So
This
I
is
end up
brutal.
I end
This
up
is a
there.
brutal review of Starbucks. Man, I
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you,
I mean,
that's like
so my kids,
incredible.
we end up in Starbucks in Australia for bagels, and then my kids are like, they've got better hot chocolate at this because there's a Starbucks down in Manly in the Corso, which is this big tourist area I live near, and there's a Starbucks, and it does okay business, but there's also like 30 coffee shops in walking distance, within like a 3 block radius. And so we know which ones are open late. That's a big advantage Starbucks has. Most of the coffee shops here close at 3, which coming from America seems sacrilegious, because I used to hang out at coffee shops at night um, in college. But yeah, so most of the coffee shops close at 3, but there is one that's open till 5.
All right,
And
well, let me
I
give you some kind
yeah.
of numbers that surprised me here. First, the Australian cafe industry is expected to hit more than 6 billion in revenue in 2018. So, like, what does that mean? Is that bad? But they go on to basically say this: even with a population that is 13 times smaller than America, the Australian retail coffee market is still 20% of the United States. So so if you're bringing coffee to Australia, you got to bring the real stuff. You got to like really,
when
it's like you're
when
almost
you
like
come for the
stepping up into
king.
conferences. This is like the Formula One of coffee. It's like you can't just send over a NASCAR driver and expect to win the Australian market, right? This is I'm just amazed by it. So But I think the thing I wonder about is, can you imagine the meetings at Starbucks where like, isn't somebody just getting killed? Like, what's going on? Why aren't we winning in Australia?
Exactly. They're
Because
like, there's some Australian, they're like, Angus, what's the deal? And it's like, mate, I told you this was gonna fail.
well, this is what I think is funny because like you think the meetings probably went on for 7 years because this is another quote from this article. In the first 7 years in Australia, Starbucks accumulated $105 million in losses, forcing the company to close 61 locations.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is the funniest thing about it. It's like, okay, so now there are 39 locations, but in the article, they basically go on to list them out, which are all like very popular areas, but they specifically say they are successful because those are tourist areas. So it's like Brisbane, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Sydney. So it sounds like the person that took over the Australian market and Starbucks, like, I know how we're going to win. We're just going to sell this coffee to the same people who've been buying it in other parts of the world, and we're going to hide it from the Australians. We're going to like, we're not even going to talk to, it's like Outback here, right? Like Outback in the United States is just some, crazy Australian brand. No Australian would ever eat there. And I think
They
that's
have
what's
one
going on.
here. They have one
Starbucks,
here. Yeah,
an
it's by
Outback?
the Costco. It's by the Costco.
That's got to, well, that has to be a tourist
I
thing.
don't
Like
know.
who's going,
I don't know.
who's going to the Outback
I don't know.
in
Not me.
Australia?
All right, no, not me. But yeah, so coffee is it I just not the Starbucks. I go there for the bagels.
Well, good to hear, Matt. So, well, let us know if I think you're the one. You're gonna report on the scene. Should Starbucks really start to take over? Let us know. Report in. Let us know if you get above 39 locations. And I guess everyone else that's listening, from the United States, well, don't worry. You're probably going to be in tourist locations, so you can probably find a Starbucks. But just know, every Australian person will be judging you if you walk around with a Starbucks coffee. That's really
Well,
the most
they'll
important
know
thing.
you're a
So.
tourist.
Definitely, definitely. All right, Matt, let's get on to some real news. So we had a lot of surveys this week, and we had our good friends at the Stack Overflow group. They issued their Stack Overflow Developer Survey 2022. So lots of interesting things in here. I want to get your take on it. So the first one I thought we'd start off with is what kind of developer are you? So there's a bunch of different answers people gave, but roughly 46% people identify as a full stack developer, 43% is the back end, and then it really starts to drop down, right? Basically 15% are developers of enterprise applications. We get on to developer and mobiles and things like this. So my question though is, I don't want to like question anyone's response, of course. Like everyone is free to respond to these however they want. But I always think to myself, like, really are 48% of these people really full stack developers? And like, is a full stack developer really a thing? Not like a person that knows how to do both, but someone that like legitimately is moving back and forth in a very proficient way. Like, doesn't every team sort of like have the JavaScript person that sort of like knows how to make the HTML and make it all work? And then they have the backend person that really understands the domain logic. So I don't want to say anyone's lying, but I just feel like it's more like a resume
Lying.
word than it is like really. So
I
what's your
see.
take? Am I missing?
I
Are there a lot of full stack developers out there? Am I too cynical?
No, I don't think there are a lot of full stack developers. I mean, I don't think I would not put that on my resume. And I've done front end work. I've done some UI work. It's been a long time. I mean, we're talking, Java struts, long time. So I don't want to go back to that. JavaScript is a scary place to me. But also, like, when I think of a full stack developer, I want someone who can handle the full life cycle of that application, and I don't think most developers do. I think most of them are like, I commit my bits and it goes into, CI/CD, and then it shows up somewhere. And that's perfectly fine as a developer, right? But, do you care about the operating system and storage? You probably shouldn't have to. But if you put full stack developer on there, I want you to be able to tell me, what, how, file system U limits are going to affect you, right? I mean, because I saw, there's that classic Google question about, when I type, google.com into my browser, what happens, right? And literally, like, when I the first time I saw that, I thought, okay, well, when you hit, the W, uh, the term sends it to X term, which sends it to the OS. I mean, and literally, and and then it bounces off the kernel, and then it goes onto the the network stack, and it goes out, and it's like I think most people are probably like, oh, it starts at this level of networking. It's like, no, no, no. You said full stack. I want to talk about actuators and keyboards.
Right, and that's what that, there's that person that's, like, compiling the response on GitHub, where that's where he starts, right? The interrupt of, like, the keyboard or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right? I guess
yeah,
the
yeah.
switch hitting the
That's great
keyboard, and it's
because I
like
saw that and I was like, "Oh, yeah. I'm lost in the weeds, the first 6 steps, I'm down in, like, the internals of the operating system," and, nobody wants to hear that. But pro tip for interviewing, if you wanna run out the clock, that's how you do it.
well, that's I guess maybe that's a better question is, like, when you because you sort of answered it already, but when you meet somebody and you're interviewing them, like I'm actually almost like more like I'm gonna have more questions. I'm more skeptical if you say you're a full stack versus like if you went in. So I guess it's just sort of like what is the strategy like to get hired? Because it's probably what these when these terms really matter. It's like if you put full stack, I actually feel like that's gonna like reduce your, I don't know, you're just gonna have to answer more questions, I guess. Where if you say, I'm really primarily a backend developer, but I certainly know about the front end and I'm familiar with it, but I just don't do it day to day. Like that seems like a or vice versa. Like I primarily focus on the front end. Of course, I know about how the back end works, but that's where my expertise. Like that to me is like a very,
That's an
at least
honest
you're coming
answer.
in right away with like, yeah, and you're just, but I feel like someone that comes in that way, it's like, okay, like you're kind of volunteering what you know, and now we're going to move on to the next step. I'm not going to spend a lot of time guessing like where you actually spend your time.
W Well, I mean, I don't like gotcha interviewing, right? But if somebody comes in and they have the gall to put something like that, I'm gonna be like, "When you say full stack, what do you think full stack means?" And they're probably gonna be like, "Well, I'm talking about from the browser to the back end." And I'm like, "That's not the full stack, baby."
For sure. Well, that kind of goes back to your question here, like the Google interview question. It's like, is that a good interview question? Like, is that really like, I mean, it's a fun question. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a fun question because you can kind of start at like literally any, I mean, you can almost start with like, let me start with biology about moving my finger, right? To actually type it in. Like, but I kind of thought to myself, it's like, I don't know. Do you like really learn anything? Like for someone that's going to work at Google or any large enterprise,
Yeah,
like, does
yeah.
this really teach you anything about like, are they going to be good at their job at Google if they answer that question rightly or
Right,
wrongly? Like,
right. It depends on the interviewer, right? So there are definitely interviewers who, for whatever reason, feel like they need to play gotcha. They need to be like, they need to one up you and find that, oh, you said you're an expert on Emacs, but you didn't know about this feature in Emacs 27, right? And and I would be like, oh, cool, Emacs, tell me about it. And see the difference there is rather than try to pin someone down on details, you let them express what they know about it, and then you ask questions based off the things they express. And so with this full stack question, or with this Google.com question, you want to let them show you how they think about the world. You want to give them the opportunity to say, hey, do you want to go deep? Because I'll go deep on it. And probably they don't, but it's nice in an interview to have that back and forth of it's a conversation. It's not a pop quiz, right? Because if you hit me with the pop quiz, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, this isn't the place for me." I wanna work at somewhere where we're gonna discuss questions and problems and issues, and, and as the interviewer, I'm gonna wanna see, how does this person think about the world? I'm not gotcha questions are stupid. I mean, they just are, because most people don't think on their feet. I mean, I would say, I'll Google that for you, and I'll get back to you, and or, and especially
you're like, that'd be funny if
especially
somebody
yeah, like Google will be like, "How does Google work?" And be like, "I'll Google it for you." No,
yeah, that
but
would be
but
awesome.
like, especially if you are customer facing, which, most more and more people are, but nothing is worse than telling a customer something wrong, lying. I mean, essentially, you're just saying like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is how it works." It's much better to say, "This is how I think it works. I'll confirm, and I'll get back to you," and then you do that. And in an interview, I don't want someone getting caught in a dumb lie. Um, I'd rather they say like, "I don't know. Here's how I think it works," and then talk it through. Because that shows a much more rational approach to problem solving and working with others and working with humans, which is probably what you're looking for in a hire. You're not looking for, the page one of Google searches.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I also think that, one of the things that, especially if a question gets used a lot as an interviewer, right, then you sort of get really good at knowing the responses, right? Whereas, like, it's much more interesting if you're, even if you are the interviewer, like, you put yourself in the same kind of condition that the interviewers or the person you're interviewing is. It's like, so okay, so tell me about the system that you built, like what went wrong, and then you are learning with them, right? You're sort of in this, you're like in an equal playing field versus like, oh, I've heard the answer to this question like 50 times and I've been trained on what to look for. And it's like, that's not, I don't know. I never find like that
I don't
very
care about
helpful.
manholes, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's kind of the manhole cover, like how many gas stations are in the United States. And like, I don't know. It's just like a lot of those things don't, I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe, I don't know. Google's not really doing well. So what do they know? Right. They're only worth like a couple $1 trillion.
Well,
So,
they just converted the whole software industry to work their way, but sure, we
yeah.
got
Yeah. What do we
SREs and
know?
Kubernetes running around, but whatever.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting is, about age, right? So it looks like the majority of people that are developers, at least in the survey, is 30, almost 40% are between the ages of 25 and 34 years old. So a little younger than us for better for us. So my question to you is like, do you think is 35 the point where like people are like, I'm ready to do something different? Is there something magical about like turning 35, been coding for 10 plus years? And now's the time to like, maybe I'm going to go to product management, maybe I go to sales, maybe I go into customer support, maybe I just exit the industry and go build houses somewhere else. Like I don't know, I just think it's like because there's a pro, if you look at the graph, there's a big drop like right
Yeah.
from that in that one age group, and then it drops again. So what's your take? Is 35, if you're over 35, should you still be coding, or should you
Well,
have found some other
yeah.
purpose with your life? What do you think?
I think there's for a lot of folks they've got the exposure to the industry and the business side of things, and it's not just the code anymore. Back in the old days when I was running a partner engineering team, um, when I was interviewing people, nobody has a background in business development. I mean, just literally most developers, that's not where they're coming from. And I ran a
Right.
engineering organization inside of BizDev, and so I would tell people it's like, okay, I'm going to change the way you think about software. And
Okay.
this might not be the job for you if and because the people I was interviewing, most of them were coming from an ops background, SRE or developers, and I was like, okay, you're going to learn that software, the success of software has nothing to do with the code. And most of them were like,
Hmm.
wait, what?
Right.
And I was like, because we're going to talk about sales and partners and the ecosystem in which you operate in, and we're going to talk about delivering features to go at a conference, not in front of a user, and we're going to make sure that things get the maximum marketing exposure, which is not what developers ever want to care about. And what's going to happen is we're going to get more users for our software, and that's going to get people excited. And we're going to be the people that sales likes best in the engineering org, and we're not in the engineering org because we're the ones who are like gluing stuff together and making it work for customers. Because we were the integration team. We were the ones who were like and the show team. So it was all conference driven design, and like a lot of people, I mean, it wasn't that huge a team, but everybody kind of, mm, some of them went off to do like, DevRel kind of stuff, like, no SSHJJ,
Yep.
and they're
Mhm.
quite enthusiastic about it. Some of them went back to like, okay, I'm going to go live in my operations hobbit hole. And that's cool too, right? But that exposure um, comes for a lot of developers. They don't all work on my team, but a lot of people like their eyes start to open up after being a developer for 10 years. Like there's a lot more going on, and I kept thinking that if I just wrote better algorithms, that everybody in the company would take notice, and I'd have more say in the direction of the product, and that's not happening. And the reason is because it doesn't have to do with the code. I mean, obviously you have to have a great idea, you have to have great code, but you have to have all those other things. You have to have sales that can execute. You have to have marketing that has a message that is usable by people. Some of the greatest code I've ever seen is no penetration. Nobody uses it. Um, there's
Nobody
so
cares,
much more.
right?
There's so
What
much
I
more
and I
to
think
it.
that's the part that's really interesting is the fact. So, basically, so it's really 40% of the developers, because we'll round up from 39, like I said, 25 to 34, and then it drops to basically 19, just under 20%. And I think, what I think is interesting, maybe they'll do this in a future survey, is like, where do people go? Because I think all the things you just
That's what I'd
mentioned,
like
whether
to
it's
see.
business
Yeah.
development, product management, and it's like, because I think right now that story
Even
is
like
more
team
like,
leads, your team leads aren't gonna be coding anymore.
yeah,
You know,
become a
you
manager,
it
maybe, or
it's like
things that are
the
not
good teachers,
technically in here.
becoming principals. Yeah.
Yeah, people becoming like architects and people kind of getting into more management. So I think that's actually the more interesting thing about it, would be sort of like, where do people go? So, because I don't think it is. I don't necessarily believe everyone's immediately leaving software. Although there are a few. I'm sure a few people. Like, I've met people. They're like, "Yep, I'm leaving. I'm going to go build
Well,
houses, or
there's
I'm going to go do
yeah,
so." They always leave for like a physical job.
yes, yes. There's that Twitter post going around. We'll put it in the show notes of the when junior developers interview where they see themselves in 10 years, and they're like wearing their hoodie in front of a keyboard, and when senior developers interview where they see themselves in 10 years, and like they're farming.
It's true. It's true. All right. Well, let's look a little bit at the technology. This is always a fun one, right? What are the programming languages that are popular? So, couple, popular ones, nothing surprising. JavaScript was 67%. So I don't think that's anything surprising. HTML/CSS, that's at 54%. Now, what did jump out to me, SQL was 52% of people doing that. So I don't know, is that sort of like the rise of, I don't know, I guess data analytics and sort of, people kind of
And
like,
everybody does
because I think
SQL.
there was a time you wouldn't, what's that?
I said everybody does SQL. That's like saying you use a text editor. At some point, you're going to be doing SQL.
I know, but I don't know. I guess you're right. I'd have to go back and look at like year over year, because I felt like, I don't know. I feel like this has jumped up a lot more, because the other ones are all the ones we know: Python, TypeScript, Java, C Sharp.
Right.
Like, all of that is just kind of your typical. But I feel like, we do hear more and more, and obviously there's lots of different databases. Not all of them use SQL, but it does feel like maybe this is sort of like people that are just like, yeah, I'm working with the data now, and I just need to know. Maybe this is my mythical Excel developers. They're like, yeah, we know a little SQL to hook up our Excel spreadsheets, and away we go.
Yeah,
All right, now
but
on the
it's always
data.
been there.
Mhm.
Yeah. I fail to see an uptick. I mean, obviously, I'm not running the numbers, but
So
it's like
nothing new, right?
I think probably it's like if you've been a developer for 10 years, you've probably touched SQL multiple times. You might not use it this year, maybe you didn't use it last year, but you've probably used it, and you will again in the future.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
maybe you're
not
right.
going
So,
away.
well, then other than that, I was gonna say not much change then. It's just like it's all the usual subsets. I was wondering if my frame the Apple language would get in here, but no, nothing new. C++, PHP, Bash and Shell. I don't know. I'm always like, doesn't feel like a programming language, but like people get mad when I say that kind of stuff. It's like
Yeah, I
gatekeeping. But
mean,
like, okay, fine. Of course
there's
you're using that, right?
yeah, the ones that we might think might be popping up are still too niche. No Go, no Ruby, no Rust. But yeah, that's fine.
All right. What about databases? On databases, everything seems to be in order. MySQL leads the way, Postgres second, SQLite third. The only one that jumped out at me is Mongo. I was surprised, almost at 30%. That was higher than I would have guessed. Like I don't, I think of Mongo as, I don't know. I finally felt like it was more
Uh,
niche than it really shows up in the survey. What do you think?
yeah, I think it is. It's just one of those technologies that it's so easy to get started, and it fits a lot of simple use cases that people don't look past it, and they don't need to, right? And there are plenty of, Mongo. There's plenty of Mongo options. You can get it from your cloud providers. You can get it from Mongo. You can get it from your operating system. It's pretty ubiquitous.
All right. Moving on to cloud, then obviously no surprise in the top four here, or actually maybe a surprise.
Maybe a
AWS
surprise.
leads the way, Azure, Google Cloud, and then Heroku, though, that was the one I did highlight, comes in at 20%. So it's, I guess it's really fifth on this. So, we talk about Heroku like it's dead, like it's over, that we all missed the window, but evidently 20%, that's pretty high. That's like shockingly high to me. So so plenty of people still using it, I guess, or they just haven't shut down their free instance like me.
Well, when you need to run a simple microservice, it's there for you, and it's just it's a classic. But I think what's kind of
Yeah.
interesting is past those numbers, you have a lot of stuff that to me kind of represents a lot of the same stuff potentially. You've got your co-location, at the bottom of your list of 1.26%. But as you move higher, you get to manage hosting. Like, is it that much different from Colo? In VMware, like, where's that VMware running? Is it in managed Colo? Is it, in a data center? So I think if you kind of like squint and you look, throw in the OpenStack and you might still be looking at 15% on premises, or traditional data center technologies, and I throw managed into traditional because it's still machines, right? It's not cloud. And so to me, like, whether or not it's managed, it doesn't matter, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a,
Yeah.
it's a data center. You don't think of it as the cloud, you think of it as a data center. And so to me, that's still pretty, and OpenStack kind of falls in the it's a data center stack.
Well, those two, I thought both IBM and OpenStack really bringing up the rear. IBM at like 1.68% and OpenStack at 2%. So it's like, wow. It's like, and I would not have predicted them to be high, but like, it's at least in this survey, like they are definitely way, way behind, which is, I don't know, which is just interesting. And it'll be interesting to see going forward. I guess OpenStack, like, does it maintain the 2%, or like next year does it down? Is it just basically falling off the face of the earth, right? Is it
I
just done?
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe. I think looking at this the bottom of the stack, it's we hear a lot about Oracle. I was kind of surprised to see them that low. I mean, I was surprised to see them beneath like Linode and so far behind DigitalOcean. But maybe they've done a good job of marketing. And weirdly, Firebase coming in at number 4. Is that a mobile? I mean, is that why it's there? Because it's just not.
I don't know.
I
I have no
I, kn-
answer.
I know what
I put that
Firebase
on
is,
here
but
and I
it's
just,
not on my radar, right?
yeah, it's kind of shocking. It's like, I don't know. It's just like, that's just a hard, I mean, that's probably, requires some follow-up questions. Like, what's going on? Like, what are people doing? Why is it so popular? And maybe it is, maybe your answer to the mobile side, like that's sort of the proxy for mobile. It's like everyone's using
Yeah.
Firebase, but
Well,
I don't know, maybe
then
someone in
if if
Slack will tell us.
if Firebase is in there, why aren't the other like mobile stacks in there, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because
that's a
there
good
are other
question.
ones. I mean, Amazon sitting at 51%. Should we just, break up Amazon and see that, EC2 still beats Azure? Should we see, because that's what I would like to see is like, the roll up and roll down of those, expansion, of those just to see, you know, well, sure, we say AWS, but is it mobile stuff? Is it, traditional IaaS? What makes up that AWS number?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. We'll have to, we'll have to send some feedback. They'll have to get on that and answer some of our questions for us next year. All right, we're going to wrap up here with two subjects. I'm going to call these the Matt Ray specials, right? First, the environments. Probably no surprise. Only surprise is like, man, how much it leads. Visual Studio Code coming in at just over 75%. Clearly the dominant development environment at this point. Now, below that, there's a bunch of stuff, but the ones I picked out, VI or Vim coming in at about 24%, and then Matt, for you, Emacs coming in at 4.51%. So I was surprised to see such a difference between Vim and Emacs. Were you? Is it just Emacs is as niche as it's ever going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I love me some Emacs. I'm not going to tell you that 2023 is the year of Emacs on the desktop. But I think it's just a hardcore technology that I'm not going to tell you it's for everyone. Uh, it's like I don't want to make some sort of terrible metaphor, but Vim being higher, yeah, it's kind of always been that way. It's ubiquitous. If you throw me in front of VI, I can do a few commands and get out, which is always a positive. But
Right.
the best part there though is it adds up to more than 100%. So clearly there are lots of folks like myself who will jump back and forth between editors in a pinch. I mean, I make sure I have Emacs everywhere, but if I found myself on a machine, I know VI would be there too. And so I think for a lot of these folks, they're using Visual Studio, Visual Code, whatever, and but they're perfectly happy to drop into other editors of choice. I've seen people going back and forth between Notepad and IntelliJ. So you never know. I would have liked to have seen more choices. I definitely don't like the monoculture. We lost Adam recently. Hopefully there's some sublime holdouts out there, but it's nice to have more choices.
Yeah, no, well, I think the thing that surprised me here is a little bit is like, I guess I hate to say snuck up, but like, did Microsoft just kind of take over the whole development environment while everyone wasn't watching? It's like, you got the GitHub, you got Visual Studio Code. It's like, yeah, like, I mean, pretty much we're all using, or most people, if you'll believe the survey, because I didn't even bother with like the source controls because it's just, it's everything's Git, right? There's like nothing really else to talk about. So I don't know. I mean, I guess kudos to Microsoft. Like they kind of own this developer experience. Like people always talk about it, but like when you look at the numbers, it comes through like loud and clear that people prefer Microsoft tools for development.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Matt, we'll end on this one. This is going to get kind of personal. I hope you don't take any offense. So it was most loved versus dreaded. So Docker Kubernetes leading the way 1-2 as most loved versus dreaded. At the bottom, unfortunately, your old job comes back. Chef and Puppet at the absolute bottom, being people, I guess 68% dislike or dread Chef, and only right above that 63% dread Puppet. So I don't know, Matt, what happened here? I feel like the Chef Puppet world, it's taking a real beating in the survey.
I'm just going to suggest that maybe a lot of former employees have voted.
Is this a referendum on private equity, or is this a referendum on technology? I guess maybe that's the ultimate question here. Because I don't know. Like I always remember people like loving Chef, like the people that were into it, like having a real passionate base. Like I was shocked to see it so low. So I don't know.
I would hazard to suggest that the trend numbers have gone substantially down the last year and a half.
All right. So no love for private equity is what you're saying. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all of that information and a lot more is available in the Stack Overflow Developer Survey. I thought it was actually a fun survey. It was a lot. There's actually lots of stuff in there. We read a lot of it. We can't get to all of it, but like if you're interested in anything, you should check it out. But Matt, hey, another area kind of related to your old job and is the supply chain. And, I thought what was interesting this week is Aqua Security came out, and I guess in conjunction with CIS, to release the quote unquote first formal guidelines for the software supply chain. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this. It's pretty long. I mean, it's like, so I actually went in there and I downloaded the CIS document, and of course, like you have to register, and it's just incredibly painful. I don't know why it's so painful to get to this regulation, but maybe someone needs to try to lead gen that and just like put it on a file share somewhere. So I guess my initial thought reading through it was like, it's a lot of words. I mean, a lot of words.
There are a lot of words.
And my initial thought was like, wow, this seems like we kind of already know this, and maybe they should have just written it in a spreadsheet. But then I was like, actually, no. Like, I mean, I guess is it worth someone going through and painstakingly writing this out in kind of a formal technology paper?
I think
like,
it is.
Do you think it's useful?
I do. I mean, there are a lot of technologies out there, and a lot of acronyms that not everyone is familiar with, SBOMs and CICD and whatever. And a lot of people, like, they don't have time to keep up on everything. And there's a lot of new players in the space. Ever since the SolarWinds hack, money's been pouring into this sector like nonstop. And I think it I don't want a NIST standard or anything for how to do CI/CD, but I think putting together, diagrams and flowcharts of like, and this is where you plug in one of these 19 tools, and this will run on one of these 37 CI/CD platforms, and you just kind of put down the charts and like, and now the code is compiled. Now you run your, now you run your linting. Now you run your test, and just like a flowchart of that, maybe it's going to come out of this, the Linux Foundation, the one they have around CI/CD. They have a a nonprofit or whatever you call it, dedicated to workflows of this sort. I'm going blank on them.
It's fine.
But
You'll think of it in a second.
yeah,
Mhm.
the whole point is like, they need to just put out like charts. They like um, CNCF landscape, and it's just like, code goes in here, you know, stuff gets deployed there to the CNCF.
Right. Well, I
And
did
then,
like
that pipeline of everything in between.
because the document, frankly, the document's extremely boring. I couldn't get through that much of it. I was like, this is boring. But what I did like is, I don't know, I guess in conjunction, right? They have this open source tool. What is it called here? Chain Bench. I don't know if you've ever used that, but basically it'll the way I look at it is the document is the requirements and Chain Bench is essentially a, open source kind of auditing tool that you could run that will kind of give you some indication like of which of these rules you're breaking, right? So it's like that seems like reasonably useful. And my feeling is like, hey, you just need a tool like this to get better and better so that people can run it rather than actually have to go manually read this document, like create their own spreadsheet and figure out if they're actually doing anything. It reminds me a little bit of your time at Chef, like the cookbooks, right? Because like weren't a lot of the cookbooks, at least some of them, based on a lot of stuff in CIS, right? Essentially, they were checking for the rules
Yeah, that
inside
was more on
CIS.
the compliance side of things. I mean, the remediation was a nightmare, but, checking for the state of things, like what's coming out of Aqua, that's usually more straightforward. You don't know how it got to that state, but you can tell if it's right or wrong. Fixing it's a much harder problem. But, yeah, I mean, we definitely had a lot of, compliance checks, and, you know, this is stepping into that, hole that, kind of opened up 18 months ago.
Well, you called this. This was, I think, in your one of your end of year predictions, right? It was like, or I think somebody asked, like, if you were starting a company, what
Yeah,
would you start? And like, this is why you see like all of these software supply chain companies. I mean, there are like a million of them at this point,
there are
right?
a
And they
million of them,
all are doing
and
different things.
well, they're all doing different things, and clearly they can't all survive, but, you know, there is a lot of money in this space because once you have the customers using these sorts of tools, they're probably pretty sticky, right? Because nobody wants to, like, up and rewrite their company's workflow for releasing code, and so, the CD Foundation. That's why they're there. I did, go and look up what I was brain stuck on. The Continuous Delivery Foundation that is under the Linux Foundation. That's what they're about. They host those products and they want to get people at least thinking about standardized CI/CD pipelines. And once you're in that, you become GitLab, you become, Atlassian. Those sorts of tools are hard to dig out once they're in place because you have to disrupt everyone's workflows, and nobody has time for that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good. So, well, I don't know. Everyone should check out Chain Bench. And now I do think, I was sort of looking for something to like simplify this whole thing. And I was like, I actually like this blog post, I guess, from Slim AI. Basically, they call it the 4 S's of software supply chain security. But really, I think it's just three. I mean, I don't know. I was going to like go through it because I just want to keep it simple. Like, and I do think like software bill of materials, SBOM. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's how people are saying it. It's like, that seems like the absolute no-brainer place to start, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah,
know what's in your build, right? And like write it all down and check that like nothing that's not in the SBOM is not in your software. So I really like that. And the way you're going to know that is you're going to sign it, right? So you
yep, yep,
digitally sign your software and you know that it's only has the stuff that is in your SBOM. And then of course, once you've kind of got that figured out, it's just like this is just back to like building containers or whatever. It's just like slim it down, like take as much out of that package as humanly possible that is not directly required by the software. And like, if you did those three things, if you just did all of that, like, it's kind of like the whole thing when we talk about passwords. It's like, I don't know, if you just got a password manager, you're so far ahead of the game that, you're like 90% ahead of everybody. It's like, sure, it'd be great if you were, everything had 2FA and all those other things, but at least you've got different passwords. And I feel like those three things are just as good on the supply chain. Now, the fourth one, then I sort of, I think this is part of their marketing message. They talk about sharing, basically share all this information.
right.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's great. Yeah, you should share it and stuff. But like just the fact you wrote it all down, like you're getting the
That's a
gold
big win.
star if you do the first three. Like
Well,
that's all I
yeah,
care about.
but the fourth, sharing, I think that's more along the lines of have make this reproducible and consumable, right? So you want someone to be able to verify what you've done. Sharing, yeah, that might feel a little, hand wavy, but really you want someone if in the in the need of an audit, you need to reproduce these builds or verify what went into them. You can do that, and so it's worth noting.
Right. I guess to me, it doesn't fit their little alliteration. And trust me, I'm a man that loves alliteration. But like, I just think it's another word for automation. It's like, yeah, what you should do is like automate all of these things, right? Like, generate your software bill of materials, generate the signing, and and then of course, like if once you do that, then almost anyone can walk in and be like, oh, let me go see what's going on,
Well,
and I
yeah,
can reproduce it over and over again. So sharing feels like a little hand wavy to me. It's like if you say automate, I don't know, maybe it's a little pedantic on my end, but I'm just like I'm
yeah,
all in on automation. Sharing, I'm like I just feels like I'm getting more email, and like we're talking about culture, and it's just like I'm zoned out at that point.
yeah. I think it's automating for auditing, and I think probably it just didn't fit their alliteration. But that's really the goal. The
That's
goal is
right.
you want to automate all this stuff in a reproducible manner.
Yeah.
And
Well,
at the end of the day, that solves 95% of the problems that we saw from things like SolarWinds and other uh, issues. And that's what it's all about. You want clean, reproducible builds. And slim would be nice. Smaller. Uh, Smaller's not always, but it doesn't have to be better. But uh, you do want reproducible.
all right. Well, everyone should check that out. If you want to read more about it, links in the show notes, and probably check out Chain Bench. And then, like I said before, just make sure you're doing those first three things. And, everyone should update their MBOs and be like, yep, we're doing these three things. We're 90% ahead of everybody else. So, all right, a couple more topics we got here. So one, the productivity we always have to talk about productivity software. So as everybody knows, I've been pushing for Zoom to buy Discord for, I don't know, like 17 years now, since the beginning of this podcast. Probably not going to happen. So it looks like the future of Slack, as this article says, looks a lot like Zoom. So unfortunately, and I'm using that word intentionally, is Slack is trying to reinvent video conferencing, which is exactly what we do not want, right? They're introducing this Huddles feature. They believe that it's like traditional web conferencing is not right. It's not what we need. And I'm just here to say they are way off back. I way off base. I hate when Slack does this. They're always trying to like reinvent everything. Like there will be no email. Everyone will Slack. That of course that is wrong. Like we're always going to have email, but we still love Slack when it has a place. And I have to say, video conferencing is pretty much a solved problem. So what I want to happen here, our only hope, because I do not think Zoom is going to do anything because they basically lost that huge market cap. I think it's clear that they just want to be a video conferencing company. That seems to be what they're good at, building a product. But Mark Benioff, he's the one at Salesforce that bought Slack. Can he go further? Can he just buy Zoom and just like almost like an arranged marriage? Like Slack and Zoom together would be the perfect combination. We'd have everything we need in one place, and we'd finally be able to just have one set of tools that we can use. What do you think? What do you think of my proposal? I'm giving up on Zoom buying Discord. Let's just bring Slack and Zoom together, and let's just reassign the VP of product at Slack to work on something different that he can reinvent. And let's just get Zoom and Slack together. Thoughts?
I'm down. I mean, from the dream of Zoombox lives on in Slack Zoombox. I assume Salesforce has some sort of box type thing. They got Slack. They just need to build it, because then they'll own like that whole pillar of productivity, and we'll have a single viable alternative to Teams, I guess, is where we're headed. Because if you let them build it themselves, it's probably it's going to be like one of those narrowing of focus, right?
Yeah.
Most Slack users won't use it, and then you'll be on you'll try to set up a meeting with somebody, and they'll be like, oh, corporate doesn't allow Slack. And like, no, it's Slack meetings, or corporate doesn't allow Discord, and then we're like, oh no, we'll use Zoom over here. And so it's like somebody
Mark
it would have
Benioff.
to be, yeah,
He's
it
the
would have
only
to
hope,
be,
man. He's the last one. Like he's the only one, because it looks like Zoom is now down. Believe it or not, they're down to like 30 billion in market cap. It's
I
not my
believe it.
money, but
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. Hey, Salesforce, like this seems like a great business. Zoom is a great business. Slack is a great business, and save us from Huddles. Like I could not be less interested in Huddles. I don't want a Huddles at all. I want
No.
just regular video conferencing. All
Well,
right, so Mark,
there's always Google, right?
that's right. No, no, that's also not an option. All right, the other thing I wanted to get your take that's sort of related to it, but I just ran across this. This is funny. Evidently, a woman wrote this article. Discord improved my marriage, and so she has set up a Discord with her husband. They now have 34 channels between the two of them, including a whole new set dedicated to pregnancy. So congratulations to them. There looks like they're gonna have a child.
Hopefully it's a private
And
Discord.
they, yeah, that's right. I assume it is. And I just thought to myself, so if you propose to the family that all messaging is going to move to Discord, right? You're not going to use any of the group chats, no iMessage, no WhatsApp, and you and your wife had 34 channels to organize your life. They have things like cat pictures, random, it's basically looks like a corporate Slack or I guess corporate Discord for lack of a better words. I just thought to myself, I think 90% of families this would lead to some kind of divorce. What are your thoughts?
Well, we're slightly on that path,
Oh, you're
with,
doing it. Okay.
no,
Tell me
not
more.
Discord, FaceTime, right? Or
Mhm.
FaceTime and messages. We all have, the iPhones and the Apple devices, so we're in that default life cycle. So, yeah, I've got, messaging between, the whole family chat, me and my wife have a chat, and me and my wife and each child have a chat, and then I have direct with each child. So, yeah, I've
But
got
this seems like the most common. I agree. I have a very similar setup. I would say what you're describing is the normal family setup,
Yeah,
right?
we don't have channels. Maybe we
Yeah.
do. A lot of dog photos in the main chat, but maybe a photos channel would be good.
I don't think so. I just think like, hey, if you're a family, like that's part of the same thing. You don't
But
need
we
a
we
dog.
also have calendars, right? We have
Uh-huh.
calendars.
I'm with you on the
Um,
calendar side. I just don't think two people in a relationship need 34 channels amongst
no,
themselves.
no, no,
That
no,
feels
no.
like maybe something's gone wrong. And the fact they're using Discord because it's like, yeah, everyone wants it's just easier on your phone. Just use the group chat, whether it's WhatsApp or messages, Apple messages. So, all right. Well, if anyone has more, that would actually be a good call out to the listeners. If you're in a relationship and you have more than 34 Discord channels between you and your partner, I'd like to hear about it. I'd just like to hear what the record is. Like maybe someone's got
If you have
100.
more than, I don't know, 10.
Yeah, it's pretty
If you
cool.
have more than probably 3 or 4, you're onto something.
Yeah, yeah, you've kind of figured it out. All right, well then finally, I guess we talked a little bit about we hope that Zoom and Slack come together. Probably won't happen, but that just give the people what they want. But speaking of that, I feel like IBM, we talk a lot about IBM Cloud, always not so positively, but I feel like this is IBM is about to do what everybody wants. IBM has announced their first quote unquote cloudy mainframe to launch on June 30th, which is what I think the number one
I
thing people like this should be the launch of the year in my opinion from IBM. This is what
I
people want from IBM more than anything. So the fact that they're sort of like quietly rolling it out only in select regions and not really talking about it is to me just a huge missed opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah, I checked the date on this when it was posted. I thought, like,
You're
has
like,
this
I'm
been
sure it
sitting?
already exists.
I mean, I thought maybe it had been sitting in beta for 10 years or something. It This was such a no-brainer for so many cloud workloads. I mean, this is a core component of Oracle's success. Whatever success they have is pulling those on-premises workloads into their SaaSes. And IBM sitting on all those mainframes, they must have just thought, well, we'll continue to sell hardware, and this is, rather than cross the chasm, they were like, let's see how deep this chasm goes. And it was just such an it's 2022. I can't believe it's happening now. That's all I have to say.
It is funny. Sometimes it's like, product management is hard. Sometimes it's like, no. Just like people have been asking this since like the beginning of time. People wanted access to a mainframe without having to buy the entire mainframe. And if you go on and read the article, it says that they're going to try to limit it to just development environments and testing. And that okay, that's fine too. But it's like open the door, like get it going. It's just like,
Oh my gosh.
having spent some time at IBM and just reading all the different things with Watson and so many different marketing messages. Like if you go to an IBM concert, you go to a conference, Matt, you and I have been at one together. I remember
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
you many years ago. And it's like, this is why people would ask you, not for this specifically, but they always had mainframe questions. They want to
Yeah.
talk about it. It's like, they just want more. And
Nobody
it's just
wants a
like,
mainframe.
to me,
But
it's the
they
easiest door to
yeah,
go
nobody
ahead.
wants a mainframe. Nobody wants a mainframe, but they want the mainframe workloads, right? And,
Absolutely.
they get them out of my data center, run it for me. That's why I was saying earlier, like, the 15% of managed colo and data centers, it's all the same thing. It's but people don't wanna run it. People don't want to own
Yeah.
it. If you can get them off that, it becomes, those workloads aren't gonna go away. But even then, I'm sure it's a struggle to relocate them. I'm sure companies like, where you work or Amazon or whoever will be happy to migrate you into a managed version of it, or, maybe rewrite it. But maybe that's what IBM's scared of, is if we open the door to making it easy to make your mainframe workloads portable, people will reevaluate if they want them. But that ship has sailed, and, this was your chance to own the SaaS 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, so I guess we'll just leave it at this. We'll be more positives. Like, I don't know why it took so long, but congratulations on IBM doing it. I believe this is going to be very well received, and I think many people are going to be excited about it. And who knows, you could be this is just another reason for IBM to become a premier sponsor at a Legacy Conf, right? Finally, we can run the mainframe in the cloud. That would be that. I
Well,
would even give them a keynote slot.
yeah, we better contact procurement now, because I hear the conference might come in 10 years.
Yeah, it could be a while before we get in there. All right, as we wrap up here, I just wanted to go through a quick listener feedback. So, turns out, as we talked about a little bit last week, there are a couple smart sprinkler systems. So, several people in the chat or in the Slack rather pointed out that I guess Ranchio has a smart sprinkler system and Rainbird. So, yes, you can have a Wi-Fi enabled sprinkler system we were talking about last week, and it sounds like they work really well. So, I guess we will all have to decide whether or not it's worth ripping out our manual, wheel-based sprinkler systems for one of those things. But they do look nice, so they do exist. The other thing I wanted everyone to know, if you want a sticker, all you have to do is email your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And then finally, if you are looking for something else to listen to after this, you should go listen to myself. I'm actually on the Cloudcast this week. So good
It
friends
was good. Yeah,
Brian and Aaron, they call it the mid-year update. I made them talk about some nonsense as well. So, it's not all serious, but we talked
you
about
did well.
VMware and a bunch of other stuff. So, always check out the Cloudcast. They're always doing a good job, and it's great to be on that show. Also, a lot of conferences coming up. That conference, if you want to go to Wisconsin, if you're in the southern United States, you probably need to escape the heat. So that conference is happening on July 25th. We've got a bunch of different discount codes in there. And then Cote's got a variety of VMware shows that you should come up to. We probably want to talk about the Spring One platform. I think that's the one he's interested in. That's not till December, so you got plenty of time to get out there. And actually, one of our listeners wrote in, said DevOps Day LA is coming up. So that's July 29th, and there's another discount code in there as well. So you should check all of those things out. Now, having said all of that, Matt, what is your recommendation this week?
I've got a pair of recommendations. My first is the international terminal at LAX. Um,
Okay. All right.
yeah, hear me out. So I recently traveled back and forth to the U.S. from Australia, and flew through LAX. And due to a flight delay, I missed my connection,
Oh,
and I was delayed 10 hours in LA. And so I was traveling on Delta, and so I went to the Delta Lounge in Terminal 2, which is a domestic lounge. And I said, "Hey, I've got 10 hours to kill. Can I buy a day pass?" And the very nice woman at the counter said, "No, we don't sell day passes." And I was
okay.
like, "Oh man, I got
Bummer.
10 hours to kill, and I just landed from Sydney." And she said, "Here's what you need to do. Down at the end of the hall is a shuttle that'll take you to the international terminal. This
Okay.
terminal is a dump."
Okay.
Go there and hang out. It's pretty empty. It's got a ton of restaurants and shops. And she was right. It was a much lovelier place to spend than that cattle holding cell that they call Terminal Two. But that's a pro tip from the pros at Delta. Thanks. And then my second choice for this episode is the mango pie. Oh, let me make sure I get the name right. Um, the Mango Pi MQ Pro. And if it looks like a Raspberry Pi, it's no coincidence. It's the same form factor, but It's RISC-V, which is interesting because it appears to be the first RISC-V board that I've seen for under $50, which is kind of like the sweet spot for trying out new hardware for me. Is, I'm pretty cheap, and these things have about a gig of, you can get them with a gig of RAM, and it's probably Raspberry Pi level performance. I haven't got mine yet, but they are available from stores, mostly in China. But
Of course.
I've got one in my shopping cart to ship from China, and it might get here in August. But it's a start. It's a start. So if you're interested in esoteric single board computers, there you go.
Well, for all of you out there, for all three of you out there, we'll wait for Matt Ray's review of the RISC-V board. I mean, I hope it's as exciting as the Raspberry Pi clusters you've been building. So I look forward to you coming on the show and explaining what craziness you've done with RISC-V. Because now you've escaped the tyranny of the ARM instruction set. Is that basically the ultimate benefit, right?
Well, so the
You're just
advantage
too
of,
limited
yeah.
by that.
Well, I mean, those of us who've been paying attention knew that ARM was going to continue to get better, right?
Right.
We knew
Yeah.
that, like, oh yeah, because of this open source advantage it has, they will continue to collaborate between the various people doing ARM development, and this will iterate faster than other closed source instruction sets.
Yep.
But ARM still has pretty heavyweight licensing requirements, and some people see that as a deterrent to
Yeah.
using it, and so RISC-V is completely open source, and you don't need a license to deploy it, which allows people to do more interesting things. You might see thousands of cores on a board, for example, or just embedding everywhere, and so it's slow today, but let's check in 5 years on the state of RISC-V, and I bet it's made up a lot of the lead. And so
No,
why
I
not
think for
get in at
sure.
the ground floor? Yeah.
I'm sure there's some Apple engineer right now who's like, "Yep, this is where we're going next. 10 years from now, there's gonna be a MacBook Pro on RISC-V." So, like, we all look
I don't know.
forward to it.
Apple will have probably cemented such a a standard of their own. I mean, now that they control their own hardware, it's harder to switch. There's even less reason to switch.
Right, but you could
Yeah,
just see, like, I just would be the Apple thing is like, no, we're not. Like, they have I think they have a perpetual license for ARM. They'll be like, nope, too
exactly.
constraining. We're going RISC-V. So, all right, we'll look forward to that. All right, well, my my recommendation, not at all related to that, surprisingly. I guess after Gmail was released in 2004, so I can tell you it has taken me 18 years to basically run out of Gmail space. So when it came out, it was just like, you don't delete anything, you just archive everything. So that's what I've been doing. So I came up on like the 15 gig limit. And so I had to go through and be like, all right, I started to just upgrade, right? Buy the Google One. It's like $20 a year for 100 gigs. But I was like, wait a minute. Okay,
Wait a minute.
do I need all this email? I mean, I'm going to spend several hours of my day costing me a lot more money doing this to save it. So what I learned was a couple different things if you're trying to, if you will, figure out where all your old mail and large mail is. So one thing, Google makes it very easy. First, they'll show you your largest email attachment. So I'm sure someone in your life has sent you like an enormous video or two. So that's the first place you start. Just get rid of your large attachments, save them to your computer or whatever. Now, I did that and I got rid of a good amount of space. But what I then figured out, I was like, I had a lot of spam email, just like, I don't know, like Netflix disc. Remember when Netflix used to send notifications about your DVD shipping? I had all kinds of just crazy email like this.
Yeah.
So I kind of was going through and manually searching, and Google search, Gmail search operator is fantastic. Like that's the one thing you can do in Gmail, so much better than Outlook. You can just search for anything, and that was an easy way to kind of clear out some stuff. So got rid of a bunch more stuff. But then I was like, what I really want to see is like top senders. Who are the people that have sent me the most amount of email? Because that will give me like a clue as to like maybe some things I can just delete. So didn't find, there was some kind of third-party services, but I didn't, had a little Matt Ray in me. I was like, I'm not giving you access to my email. I'm not giving that, right? I don't want that. But what you can do is you can do Google Takeout. You can download all your email, so you just have it. So that's probably pretty smart. It puts it in inbox format. And then I found this Gmail top sender script. So somebody figured out, I don't know, it's some set of bash commands, basically go through, and it gives you, it's not perfect, but it gives you essentially a list of like, here's all the people that sent you an email, all the email addresses. So that sort of reveals like, oh, why do I have like 2,000 emails from Hilton hotels with different promotions? So I went through that and I deleted a whole bunch of email from top senders, which were clearly like promotions and things I didn't need to. So I went from, so the net is I went down from like, if you will, almost up to the 15 gigs. So now I cleared out 10 gigs. So I felt like this is pretty good. Every 15 to 20 years, I will spend a couple hours going through and deleting email. And I think Gmail is still one of the best products from Google. I love it. So if you need to figure out, if you're getting to that point, check out the Gmail top sender script. It's a very easy way to clear your email.
I just deleted 2,500 emails.
Yeah.
While you were talking.
It's amazing
like,
when you start to figure out, and it's actually kind of, it's almost like a weird, I don't know if it's fun. I guess it was fun for me. You'll have to decide it's fun for you. It's like when you go through and you start, especially when you start looking at email that's really old, it's almost like looking at old photos. You're like, oh yeah, I remember when that was like, because like there'll be whole services that have completely gone, right? Like, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when we were using that all the time, or I remember sending this email. And so it's sort of like an archive of your life, which maybe is a bit scary, but also kind of interesting. So I would say, I don't know, it's probably no one really wants this. Is back to like product management, but I think it's probably, if anyone has Google has like some 20% time they're looking to like, fill something with, I bet you like a top senders report would be fairly easy for them to write and include it as like some experimental feature. So I don't know if anyone else really needs that but me, but I really appreciate it. So check it out. The link's in there and you can download the takeout and run the script. So all right, Matt. Well, if this is the first time you've been listening to Software Defined Talk, welcome. This is episode 365. So if you want to see all the show notes, just go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/365 and you'll see links to all the things that we talked about and a bunch of things we didn't. And you can also join us in the Slack. The Slack community is super fun to be in. It's we talk a lot about technology, but as other things break out, there's been a lot of sports talk today and other topics. There's lots of people talking about other things. So it's a fun place to kind of like, and if you will, connect with the community. So highly recommend the Software Defined Talk Slack. And if you ever want to see us do this live, subscribe to our Twitch or watch us on YouTube. And if you're still looking for the other social channels, we're on everything else, right, Matt? We're on the Instagram, we're on the Twitter,
we're everywhere.
So with that, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
All right, good job. I think we had a really good delay. I don't know why. I don't know. It's between us.
Between video and audio, or
yeah, just like I felt like on the audio, like you were like slightly delayed to me, or vice versa. So I don't know.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't think
I'll see what I can do in the new household.
I don't know. It could be my end too. Although I am actually Ethernet in, but like as we know, that may or may not work. All right, were there any?
I can see my router.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, Brian getting a clipboard manager. I like it. Sorry, go ahead.
I do have a something to deal with.
Okay.
I did an interview with Barton over at Dell, and I've got he sent me the video of it, and do we want to repost that in the thread?
You can, or you can maybe it's better just throw it in the YouTube channel. If it's
well, I don't want to. I don't want to take the video because Barton was going to post it in some blog or something. Okay. So I was just thinking we could take the audio. It's about 20 minutes of me talking about FinOps X and what FinOps is, and a little bit about KubeCost and the OSS Summit, and just Barton asked good questions.
Yeah, like just make it up. I'd say make an episode, put it out on a Tuesday or whatever, just like whatever you want to do, man.
Okay. Just put like a voice in the front saying, hey, this is a special episode that I did with our friend Barton over at Dell, and you can catch the video eventually somewhere in the Dell ecosystem. But for now, we're just throwing the audio up. If you want to hear.
Yeah, I would just like, because I just put it out like Tuesday, you'll see it like kind of when I put the interviews and stuff. I would just throw it in there and like label it interview. I can help you too with it if you want, and just like it's let it show up. But why not? Right?
I tried to drop the video in my Dropbox, but it's 3.2 gigabytes, and
so it'll never upload.
Nobody needs 1080p video when all I wanted was the audio.
Well, you can do it in QuickTime, right? QuickTime, you can just like export just video, just sound, right? I don't know. Does it sound good? Well, because you can't mix it, right?
Well, that's the thing. I can't mix it. The sound is okay.
How did he
There's
record
this.
it? Go back. Did he record it on just the two of you
He's
talking on
got
one mic?
on like like an iPhone or something, and
Okay. So there's no 2
so
tracks.
no, there's not 2 tracks, and his voice sounds better than my voice, or to my ears at least, he sounded clear, but, yeah, so I didn't, I wanted to share it with you, but, it was too huge. So I'll strip out the audio in QuickTime and let you take a listen, and if you wanna punch it up, we can, you know,
Okay. Yeah, let me
you
see
can
if
tell
I
me what
can,
to do.
if I can do anything with it. Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, that sounds good.
But, it's just, content,
Yeah,
so.
people wanna hear more Matt Ray. Then people always want more Matt Ray,
Well,
so I think it's
I
good.
missed 2 episodes, so,
That's right. So you gotta make it up. This is how it
and those
works,
were good
so.
episodes. I was listening and I was thinking, "Oh, man, I wish I could talk."
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate everyone watching the stream. We'll be back next week, probably on Wednesday, maybe a little bit earlier US time. It'll be Cote and myself because Matt Ray, as he already alluded to, he's got life, he's got moving and other life things to take care of. So um with that, having said all that, we'll see all of you in the Slack, and we really appreciate you all joining us on the stream. It makes it a lot more fun to record when people are watching. So take
Yep.
care.
Bye, y'all.